Hello, everybody, and welcome to Responsible AI in Action with the Responsible AI Institute. I am very excited. We have Sol Rashidi joining us today. Sol, thanks so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
It's great having the opportunity to chat with you. On this show, we interview a wide variety of different experts in the AI space, and you have really seen it all when it comes to AI. You are, of course, a leading expert in AI and data, and you have worked with so many influential companies from Estee Lauder, IBM, Royal Caribbean, Ernst& Young, and so many others. I'm wondering, just given your wealth of experience, maybe we could start here. How have you seen AI evolving, and where do you see it heading with everything that's going on?
Yeah. A great question. I think just one minor correction, right? I don't think anyone's an AI expert at this point in time. I sure as heck would never even categorize that. I know it's like a LinkedIn title, and I know people are saying they're an AI expert and advisor. And if you take a look at like their bios of the work that they've done, yeah, they've done it for the past 2 or 3 years. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily buying into that. So I think it's very, it, I think folks have to be careful as to who they partner with and who they connect with, especially when there's a lot of snake oil out there of who is and who isn't. And I think for those of us who've been in the space a really long time, like the pace of change is just so fast, we can't even keep up with it. And so I, by no means, am an expert. And, I've been doing deployment since 2011. I would say my wealth of experience and knowledge is a wealth of mistakes and assumptions that totally didn't hold true. It's understanding cultural nuances. It's understanding that you can do something and select a use case that has business value and go to POC, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's able to get away from POC and graduate into a full production enterprise grade environment. And what are the reasons why? So yes, lots of experiences, lots of failures with a few snippets of successes here and there. And I'm hoping that's what I can share with the world. Not that I have the answers to everything, but I do know where I've messed up. And, I have just under 40 enterprise grade applications still in production, which is great. But yeah, it's just a lot of mistakes and assumptions and trial and error and then figuring it out. So I hope that's of value to anyone. And in terms of the evolution, it started off with these, what I call it spot treated applications of AI well, let's put AI here. Let's put AI there. And I think at least at an enterprise level, the conversation is, okay, if we want to be AI centric, it's not about spot treating or applying AI in a specific function or group or team or process, but how do we adopt it, inherit it, and embedded it within our organizational model? The good news is the discussions being had. I would say where we're still falling behind is organizations haven't figured that out yet. So they are thinking big and then they're starting small within very specific areas. But that scaling of taking it from a business area into the entire area, there's still some more massaging to happen. So that's the first evolution. It was one-off spot treats, apply it here to now, well, we want to become AI centric and we want to embed it into our organizational model. Let's start thinking through how to do that. I think the second evolution is obviously democratization. When Watson went live in 2011, it was very B2B centric. Only enterprises that had the cash could leverage AI applications. But now, whether you're direct to consumer, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. There are AI capabilities for everyone that are off the shelf that you can pick and choose from. And you could be in R&D, sales, marketing. You can be an individual business owner and you're just trying to increase the productivity because it's you, yourself, and I. Like I use 6 to 8 different tools on a daily basis. There are ways to inherit, adopt AI that can short circuit some of the processes that we're used to that don't need to be as laborious or as manual or as lengthy as they used to be. So I love the fact that it's no longer in a specific group, but now we're actually trying to pivot into how do we organizationally adopt this. And I love the fact that we've pivoted from B2B for it to being B2C and direct to consumer. So everyone has access to it. But there's a lot of snake oil. There's a lot of stuff being tagged as AI that isn't AI. And my running joke is, I assess the vendors. And I would hate to say that there's some vendors I've come across are like, oh, we do AI. I'm like, really? Okay, let's take a look. And it's just a SQL script running a big business decision tree. If this, then this, if this, then that. And I'm like, okay, where's the embedded intelligence into that? So those are the three things I would say is the evolution that I've noticed. And with it, obviously, comes a responsibility around responsible AI, especially with the latest announcement and things going into multimodal. It's no longer just text based, it's voice based. There's a ton of stuff to consider. And so now I'm actually going through and taking a look at all the acts and the regulations that were released to see if they actually included or embedded multimodal AI applications and if it covers it. So we shall see. The research and the forensics just begun.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I completely agree with what you said when you had started out. That AI, it's evolving so quickly, it's changing so rapidly that it's hard for anyone to pinpoint themselves as an expert because that expertise is always requiring a pivot, a change, an evolution of sorts. And you make a really good point too about talking about the evolution of business to business and now B2C. The Washington Post released an article recently about Google launching their search generative experience. And many creators whose businesses rely on Google search for traffic for their websites are deeply concerned about this, about Google SGE taking business away due to people just doing searches and then reading those quick summaries that it's producing. And not only that, but the article stated that the underlying tech behind OpenAI, Google, Meta, and Microsoft's AI was trained on millions of news articles, blog posts, ebooks, recipes, social media comments, and Wikipedia pages that were scrapped from the internet without paying or asking permission for their original authors. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Sol. How do we advance AI without infringing on the rights of creators? And if the data is used from other websites, are Google and other tech platforms allowed to use this data to feed their AI models?
This may be progressive. This may be debatable. For me, it's a very simple answer. If you are creating content and you are putting it out there for the world to see at zero cost, you're not charging a fee for your newsletter. You're not charging a fee for folks to read your blogs, your newsletters on your website. If you're putting stuff on Reddit and on social media, if you are trying to dive into the realm of being a thought leader, and as a result of that, you are producing content for the world to read, what is the difference between an individual person versus a foundational model reading the content that you have posted and learning from it, reassessing, regurgitating, and reprocessing it in a way that contextually makes sense for your own voice and tone? There are countless newsletters, for example, that I subscribe to. My process is to go through when I have the time and understand what people are writing about, what their point of view is, and to learn and to assess. I may not use it for my content, but it gives me a perspective that I can use potentially later on, or it widens my perspective. So I learn from other people's content and vice versa. But it is out there to grow, to learn. And as a result, I follow these individuals because I like their thought leadership and where they're going with these things. But I am learning from content that they've posted out there for free. Now, I'm an individual, but a machine's doing the same. The machine is learning from content that's put out there from the thought leader. So if you're doing it for free and you are not charging people for it, it's out there in the internet. It's part of the ether. You put things on social media, you kind of know what the consequences are. Anyone and everyone can see it. That's also what you're doing. So for me, there's no difference between human and machine. It's you're putting free content out there because you're trying to establish yourself as a thought leader, and individuals and foundational models are learning from that content to be able to assess and understand contextually where it's appropriate to resurface. Now, I know there's some debate on generative AI. I was in the music industry, and AI is a very tumultuous conversation, right? There's two sides to the camp. You've got those like John Legend who are like, this can help us. You've got those like Pharrell's like, there's going to be proliferation of really great creative content if we embrace it and don't reject it. And then you've got others who are like, heck no, this is going to disrupt the creative process, et cetera. Again, I may be overly simplifying it, but I have not known a single artist, a single whether you're a singer-songwriter, whether you're a sculptor, whether you're a painter, that has not gotten inspiration from another sculptor, from another painter, from another singer-songwriter. Heck, we have copyright laws because people are stealing from other people, like directly, and putting it into their songs and works of art and content. When there is direct, like stealing / plagiarism, there's a conversation to be had. But if you're creating original content from prior inspired content, I would also say, what's the difference? Now, there's always a fine line in defining inspiration from plagiarism, of course, and that's the stuff that you have to catch up on. There's no doubt about it. But I haven't known a single content creator who didn't get their inspiration from other individuals. You're an author, you read other books. You're a singer-songwriter, you have other artists. You're a sculptor, you have other people you follow. And that's what creates your own original art. But you are getting inspiration. And so you're going to carry over some of that tone. You're going to carry over some of the themes and the moods. The generative aspect is the same. You're using works of art from the past to recreate new works of art of the future. It's just accelerated and expedited by, a multiplication fold that I think most people can't keep up with. So I know I'm oversimplifying it. And I'm not saying that there isn't plagiarism going on and that there's direct stuff that's being copied. That all has legitimacy. But for the majority of it, if you're putting it out there in the internet, you're putting it out there in the world to see, and you're not discriminating with who gets to see it, I don't understand yet the delineation until someone comes to me with a good argument about it, because you put it out there for absorption. And if you put it out there for absorption, it's going to be absorbed.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. That's something that I haven't thought about much with regards to that relation to artists and how I think there's a saying along the lines of like great artists steal. And you make a really good point that in a lot of ways, if we put that information out there, who's to say that a model can't use that and, repurpose it? And to have that forethought of, okay, if I'm putting something out there on the internet, it's going to be consumed, it's likely going to be used for other purposes and such. And this leads me to my next question with regards to a Politico article that was released recently about how there's a lot of lobbying going on in Washington to help mitigate the fears of this AI apocalypse and how people's fears of AI aren't warranted or have been overstressed, so to speak. And now the tech industry, a variety of different tech giants are now pouring millions of dollars into lobbying for artificial intelligence. And there's this philosophical war happening in Washington where one side is warning that AI poses existential risks to humanity, and the other is cautioning against rules that slow or block its transformational benefits to society and national security. And I think in some ways this relates to what you were just talking about. This article goes on to say that concerns about AI are starting to wane in Washington in favor of developing this technology quicker than other nations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we strike that balance. Of course, we need regulation that helps mitigate the risks without stifling innovation. But how do we go about doing this when we're not quite sure what the outcome is going to be?
I think that's the hard part. We don't know what we don't know. And everyone's predicting where it may go, but no one really knows. I do think there needs to be tremendous regulation, hands down. And again, I'm going to give another simple analogy. When parents become parents, they have an obligation to raise children. Children, for the most part, their DNA sort of predicts how they're going to be, but parents teach them right from wrong, a moral compass, ethical values, curiosity. They expose them to different cultures. And our job as caretakers is to provide a safe, loving, nurturing, and a learned environment, and hopefully raise children who will treat other human beings well. Not all parents are built that way. We have very negative and bad caretakers, bad parents who neglect their children, who don't teach their children, who belittle their children, who abuse their children. The model makers of the suite of AI capabilities, my analogy is the same to parents. We have good parents and we have bad parents. You're going to have good parents who are going to use it towards ethical use, towards efficiency and productivity and all the great things that we talk about. Unfortunately, not everyone is built that way. And so you're going to have negative parents, these negative caretakers that are going to create capabilities that threaten national defense, that threaten our energy grid, that threaten our position as a country and the safety of, the citizens. You can't control that, unfortunately. But because of the power of this capability and in the hands of these negative caretakers, these bad parents, the consequences can be exponential. And I think that's why it's raising awareness and that's why it's creating fear. And so I do think if there's a way to regulate, we need to do it now. The heartburn I have is we can regulate in the US, but who's regulating Russia? Who's regulating China? They don't have the same regulatory checks and balances that we do. And so if we regulate ourselves, do we put ourselves at a disadvantage because those countries aren't regulating themselves? And I think that's where things get really fuzzy. It is not a black and white situation at all. It is like 100 shades of gray, a big thing to tackle, but we need it. We do need it because unfortunately we have bad players in the market.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Sol, you've given us so much great things to think about today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on Responsible AI in Action. And I also just really appreciate the work that you do in this space. You're coming at this with an important perspective. And so many of us who are in this space are able to learn so much from you and your expertise. Before we sign off today, I'm wondering if you could just share with our listeners where they could find out more information about you and your work.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you want to follow, that would be amazing. Sol Rashidi on LinkedIn. I do have a best-selling book. Well, it just got bestseller a few weeks ago. That's
Oh,
out, your AI
congratulations.
survival guide. Thank you. Thank you. It was the first time I've ever done it and I'm hustling big time, but it worked out. But it's just practical, grounded, like real world experience. It's not theory. It's not research. It's not reading from others. It's like me literally going back through all of my notes and summarizing where things went wrong. And then, of course, I have a website, solrashidi.com as well. But however, which way you choose, I just appreciate the opportunity and the time.
Great. Well, I'll make sure to include those various resources in our show description. So viewers out there, all you have to do is scroll down, check out the various resources provided. Sol, thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Take care.